to win when you're not playing your best. But the mark of any good team is knowing how to win when you're clearly the better team. And I know, like, it's sacrilegious to say that, right? It like goes against it. You might as well make it a rule of sports fandom, right? You're not allowed to say that the better team didn't win the game. But if you look past the Duke score of 28-7 and you actually watch that game, you could have said, man, Clemson was controlling the game, found a way to lose. If you sat through and literally observed every single play of the Florida State game, you could come to a conclusion, a very rational conclusion, that, man, Clemson controlled the game. Part of becoming a great team is not making the mistakes that happen that result in you losing a game like that. And, you know, I hate Florida State, okay? It rhymes. It's true. They're my rival of my team, Florida State. If you're a Clemson fan, they're your second rival. We ask that all of the orange in the nation unite together, to band together to defeat the tyranny of the Seminole tribe. And for the vast majority of 3.5, 4 hours on Saturday, it looked like Clemson was going to do just that.
I'm here to tell you, Mark, though, that Florida State beating Clemson is the best thing that could happen for the ACC conference. Clemson fans aren't going to like this. It's not going to make you feel any better right now, but it is good for the conference because it proves, A, that you have two quality opponents in your conference, and it proves that your unranked team in Clemson, who everybody had discounted, everybody was pushing way out of the top 25, which I thought was ludicrous to push them all the way out of the top 25, that they are right there on par with a top 5 team. That tells me that you have two teams playing, if you want to believe that Florida State was a top 5 team, whether you want to say that or not, that's on you. But what it is, it tells me that you've got two teams playing on caliber of top 5 football.
Yeah, Diesel, look, I think you could have said that if Clemson won the game, though. You know,
sure,
like if
sure,
Clemson
but I don't.
Won, yeah.
I think pundits would have dismissed Florida State and say, oh well, they're not really back. They're not really back.
Yeah, I mean, watching the game, I thought Florida State was a good, not a great team. Watching the game, I felt like Clemson was a good, not a great team. Florida State fans are beside themselves that they dropped in the polls. You know, well, you didn't look like Clemson's equal. And Clemson was an unranked team, you know, and Clemson in the polls this week, in one poll, Clemson is 33rd, and the other poll, Clemson is 38. Clemson essentially lost another game and still is getting votes. Why? Well, again, you know, because of the woulda, coulda, shoulda, but didn't. And folks, you know, there were a few plays in that game that made me like beside myself, scratching my head as to how this was happening, as to how this was unfolding. One of the plays involved exactly when I was telling you guys, one of the 3 moments in the game that I felt like Clemson was in total control. Clemson has the ball at the FSU 10-yard line, under 2 minutes to go in the game. Clemson is starting to, you know, take all of the time on the play clock and really wind down the clock, looking like they're doing their A-level best to make it the last possession of the game. They ran a running play for no yards on first down. They ran a stupid trick play on second down that stopped the clock when it fell incomplete, and all their other plays had been working, you know, of their regular offense, they've been working. And then on 3rd and 8 at the FSU 9-yard line, all right, you got to be aggressive. The call was a quarterback draw. Folks, that's just not my mentality. You know, if you guys were to describe the gist of our show Offsides, you'd probably say balls out, right? You'd probably say in your face. You'd probably say aggressive, right? I mean, that's who we are. That's our nature. That's what we do. You don't beat Florida State by calling a quarterback draw on 3rd and 8. You just don't do that, right? Especially in a tie game where you're going to try to play for a field goal that is going to be kicked by a New York City investment banker who wasn't on the team last week. And that kick was missed. Naturally, I asked Dabo about that after the game. Here you will hear my question to Dabo. His response, you tell me, was it a fair question or not? Was it a fair response or not?
Final offensive possession, there was a third and 8 or 9, and the call was a QB draw. It seemed like there was a chance at the time to potentially run the clock out and have that be the final possession of the game. Can you speak to the decision to kind of play for the field goal there that ultimately was missed, as opposed to maybe being more aggressive and putting the ball in the air there?
Yeah, it really wasn't playing for the field goal. Garrett really thought that play was going to pop. They're bringing Saul blitz, and we really thought it was a great call, and thought it was going to pop. We really thought that we had a great call right there, and they made a good play. It got off a block, but I don't have a problem with the call. Again, we thought it was going to hit. Especially with what the call was for them defensively, but it didn't work out, and so you get to ask the question. But I have no problem with how Garrett called the game. Thought he did a heck of a job. Gave us a chance to win.
What do you think of that exchange, Diesel?
I think he was a little annoyed by the question.
Yeah. Okay. He was a little annoyed by the question. It was interesting to me. I noticed when I asked the question, and he knew it was like a question that was questioning him. His fingers started to tap a little bit on the table, and he said, naturally, he was implying I'm being an armchair quarterback, right?
I appreciate the fact that Dabo, though, explained why he thought that was a good call.
Sure.
They explained what the defense was showing them that made him believe that was going to be an effective play call. Look, it doesn't always work out. You can call what you think is a good play, and it doesn't always work out because maybe somebody on your team didn't execute it perfectly. Maybe somebody on their team made a play that they hadn't made yet in the game. They played above themselves for those 8 seconds of that play. Sometimes you can have the best of intentions and the best plan, and it just doesn't work.
You know what, Diesel? I think there are good play calls that don't work, and I think there are bad play calls that do work.
Sure.
To me, even if that worked, it was a bad play call. A quarterback draw on 3rd and 8 is a low ceiling, low floor type of play. It's a low floor, meaning you're not going to lose the ball and you're not going to lose yards. The worst thing that can happen isn't that bad. But you needed a high ceiling play there.
What's the saying, Mark? It's only stupid if it doesn't work.
Yeah, but again, Diesel, it's like, at some point, do you have the mentality of a quarterback draw on 3rd and 8? Or do you have the mentality that we're going to go for it? Like we're going to, balls to the wall, man. We're going to make it happen. And I was surprised about that. I really was. I was surprised to see Mike Norvell going for 4th and 1.5, going for 4th and 2, going for 4th and 10 late in the game, despite the fact that it could have theoretically led to a Clemson field goal to win the game. And I continuously saw Dabo at midfield, 4th and 2, send out the punting unit. And I'm watching this happen. It's like, okay, change of field position. But at some point, in order to beat a Florida State, you got to make those calls. You got to go for the gusto a little bit here. 4th and 2, how about your best fake punt play? What's that? You need 2 yards. Okay? So I felt like what you saw on Saturday was a younger, progressive coach beating out an older, conservative one. And I felt like the kids did enough to win. Another head scratcher for me, the Cade Klubnik fumble, right? Phil Maffa was charged with protecting Cade Klubnik's blind side on that play. Now, why was it his blind side? Because that was a play that was going to the left side of the field. Cade Klubnik had 2 reads on the left side of his feet on the field. So I want Cade Klubnik to see the blitz coming, and he needs to have the self-awareness to do that. But you got a running back whiffing on a blitz coming in from the right with Cade Klubnik looking to the left. And I'm just like, guys, what? You got a running back protecting Cade's blind side on the play. I didn't get it. I just didn't get it. Certainly if I was the coach of the team, I would make calls and you would say, Mark, why did you make that? And that's what happens when you're the head coach of the team. You get questions. Sometimes all you can do is explain it. I thought my question to Dabo Swinney was fair. I appreciated his very fair response. He was a little bit annoyed by the question. That's okay, right? And in the end, it was Dabo Swinney in the press conference. He opened by saying it was about the toughest loss he's ever suffered. And then when the press conference was over, I was watching him. The other media members were packing up their bags and everything. I'm sitting there watching him, and I saw him go, and then he shook his head, and he walked off. And you could tell that this one was one they thought they were going to get. You could tell that this was one that was going to leave a mark. It felt, for all intents and purposes, if you watch the course of the game, it felt like it should be about a Clemson 27-17 win. That's what the game felt like. I remember saying and thinking at halftime, man, it feels like Clemson should be up by more than 3 here. In soccer, that's called a result that's against the run of play. You know what I mean? Like one team is kind of controlling the action, and the team that is under pressure the whole game finally scores a goal. Like they score a goal, and it's like they've been kind of getting their butts kicked most of this game, and now they're going to win. That's called in soccer against the run of play. Florida State's win to me felt like it was against the run of play, but that's no consolation to Clemson fans who now have no national championship on the table, no college football playoff on the table, and in all likelihood, no ACC championship game on the table. I thought the players played well enough to win. I thought the coaching staff let them down. I really did. I thought the coaching staff really let them down in that game. 71307 on the text line is where you guys can get to us on the show today. And we welcome you guys chiming in on that and all of the above. So we are off and running, man. Your thoughts, your big takeaways from the game, more than welcome here on the show. 844-FAN phone. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663 is the number. We joked last week that, both teams had their D-Day, Clemson and South Carolina. Clemson failed on their D-Day. South Carolina survived on their D-Day.
Ultimately, our poll respondents were right.
They were right.
The highest percentage, the winner of that poll, I'm trying to scroll back and find it here. The highest percentage of that poll, 48.5%, said that Clemson would lose and that South Carolina would win. Man, we got some smart people in the audience.
You guys can chime in on the madworldattractions.com text line 71307 to start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. Another thing I'll tell you, Diesel, that Florida State crowd is the most classless bunch I've ever seen in my life. Like, I've never seen a more classless.
Bottom 10%ers?
Like, the whole fan base, unlike the Gamecocks where it's really just the bottom 10%, Diesel, like, I saw not a single Florida State fan offering any respect, like acting like they expected to win on a hope and a prayer in that game. I saw like it was just, it's hard to root for a fan base like that. It really is. You know what I mean? And Clemson fans, who knows? Florida just might be good enough this year to put a scare into Florida State the last game of the year. But I really don't see anybody doing it before then. They get Duke at home. They don't play Notre Dame. They play the cupcakes of the ACC between now and season's end. And we'll see if Florida has a shot for them. But it was just smack talking Clemson. That's all it was. It's just like, you guys are very fortunate to win. Be grateful that, Mike Norvell's aggressiveness trumped Dabo Swinney's conservativeness. Be grateful for that, because if it's hard for me to say the better team won that game. Likewise, Diesel, your team, Diesel, like I didn't see that game. I saw the box score. Appalachian State outgained Wyoming more than 2-1 and lost the game.
Single statistical category, held a 5-point lead late in the fourth quarter,
went for a long field goal that would have essentially iced the game. It was a long kick, but it's up there at 7,000 feet, so you feel a little bit better about attempting a long field goal late in the game. Even if you miss it, you got to put them in a position where they got to move the ball 75 yards and score a touchdown to beat you under 2 minutes to play. And the kick was blocked. Scoop and score, ran back 70 yards for the lead, and then App State drove the ball all the way down to the Wyoming 25. They were in field goal range, or right there on the edge of field goal range, and then a first-year starter throws the ball up, gets picked off on third down. I mean, you take that sack, you still give your kicker a chance to go kick a game-tying field goal. And, you throw it up in the air, that's what happens.
Sometimes it doesn't make sense, Diesel. Like, we were looking at that line, and Wyoming was a 3-point favorite. And then I'm looking at the stats during that game, and I'm like, Appalachian State is controlling this entire game. And then, the result ends up being exactly what the spread was. So it's like how, you guys at Las Vegas successfully predicted that App State would crap the bed.
We ended up kicking a whole lot of field goals. I think only got it into the end zone once late in the fourth quarter, or midway through the fourth quarter. And that's what happens. How many times do you watch your team settle for field goals and not be able to punch it into the end zone, and then it comes back to bite you in the ass later? And that's what happened.
All right, my friends, I've got the good, the bad, and the ugly from the Clemson-Florida State game coming your way next. Plus your calls at 844-326-3663 right here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere, my friends. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. And we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. If you're looking for a little shining light, a little hope, Clemson fans, I just might have a little something for you. Let's see, when do I have that on the rundown? At 4 o'clock, 35 minutes. If you're down in the dumps, we said, look, for the team that loses on their D-Day, I'm going to have to be a crisis counselor. All right, so if you want me to be your crisis counselor today as a Clemson fan, we'll get the Dr. Phil music ready. We'll rock it out today. It'll be beautiful.
Hey, if you're down in the dumps, just realize at least you're not a Carolina Panthers fan.
Hey, could be worse. Could be worse. Diesel says that 15 minutes before we speak to the analyst of the Carolina Panthers.
Hey, I had a bold take in the pregame show. We'll get to that later.
The other thing, Diesel, is I got to say this before we get, everyone at Clemson, the people who work there, Diesel, they care so much. And I realize, well, Mark, what do you expect? Whatever. And I realize the rivals of Clemson, anyone wearing garnet, Florida State, South Carolina, loves to hear this. But it looked like somebody shot their dogs when they lost that game. I was standing next to Clemson athletic director Graham Neff at the urinal. Mark, how did you know it? You're not supposed to look, et cetera, et cetera. My periphery could tell that it was Graham Neff, right?
Did you ask him about Brad Brownell again?
No,
You're like, maybe now is when he wants to talk about this.
The urine stream stops immediately right there, Diesel.
Zip, gotta go.
Gotta go. No. And the expression on his face, right? I walked back and his suite was open. And there were people in his suite that had tears in their eyes. Okay. Don Munson, voice of Clemson, who joins us tomorrow, walked into the press conference, sat on the table right in front of me and looked, had a very despondent look on his face. The media relations people, Dabo Sweeney, I'm just here to tell you guys, they care. And the pain was, not what you might, the pain was what you would expect from the players and the coaches. But at Clemson, the joy and the pain filters down through everybody. And that's something that really, really jumped off the page to me being there on Saturday. The folks there care. And whereas the rivals love to celebrate the misery of those who do, I think on some level you got to respect that, right?
Yeah, but there's a lot of Gamecock fans. Somewhere Mongo is in his mind quoting that scene from South Park. He was like, yes, Yes, the tears of unfathomable sadness. Yes.
Most certainly is, man. Okay, let's see what you guys have to say. Let's get to Tallahassee Todd. Giesel, all I'm going to say is let's see if he'll be the first. Tallahassee Todd, the floor is yours. You're offsides.
What's up, man? What's happening? What's happening?
Good to hear from you.
Oh man, I'm good, man. Life is good. Life is good. I'm gonna say one thing just right here, and I know how it feels to lose.
Oh, I know you're a Seminole fan.
Yes, I've been when Clemson was beating Florida State when they had Trevor Lawrence, 56-14 or something. Okay, I was there last year when Florida State blew that game with Jordan Travis, and he wanted to be Air Jordan instead of Michael Jordan shoot all the jump shots. And and Travis, instead of using his feet, tried to throw. That cost us a game last year. I was there at the Clemson game when James Blackman threw an interception. Florida State could have been driving and winning. I've been on the side of this rivalry for years. I went to the Bowden Bowl. I witnessed the ups and downs of Florida State. Been a fan since 1980. Now the bandwagon fan. I was a fan before James Winston even got there. I was a fan before Chris Weinke got there. So you probably stating my age. He's probably early 50s. Just turned 52. Clemson played a good game. I'm not going to run my mouth, talk smack, because I'm a realist. The Boston College game got us ready for Clemson. But what really hurt us the most is you cannot take a team lightly. I'm not saying we took no team lightly, but Clemson should have won the game. But to me, I think the effort was there on both teams, and Clemson should have won. Because I was at
you're
game.
The only Florida State fan that I've heard say this. You know, I had Sports Illustrated Florida State sitting next to me in the press box, Todd, and I said to him in the fourth quarter, I said, as honest as you can be, who's been the better team in this game? And he said, Clemson easily. Florida State Sports Illustrated writer, Clemson easily. Okay, has been the better team in this game. But again, man, you know. Look, Florida State was there. I would just, you know, I think a lot of Clemson fans would appreciate a tip of the cap. No one's trying to take the win from you. You know, Clemson snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. That's what they did. Yeah.
Now, this is what I will say. I'm hearing a lot of talk on my job. You can't criticize what a coach thinks or decides to do or his play. Take for example, we had the Woody Taggart deal in Tallahassee. Okay. Mike Norvell inherited a train wreck. It's been 8 years since we beat Clemson. Okay. It's not a brag or boast. I'm glad we won. I'm not saying who's the better team. I'm just glad that we won.
There you go.
You can't forget, Dabo is a good coach. Can't knock it. I take it off the air. If you try to look for greener grass, it might not be so green, Clemson. Hold on to what you got and keep your heads up. Have a good one.
Hey, Todd, I appreciate it. And that's the first, you know, I thought the words class and Florida State fan were an oxymoron before we got Tallahassee Todd on the line, because all I've dealt with are Florida State morons. That's it. But, guys, when you consider Clemson 25 first downs to Florida State's 16, Clemson 429 yards to Florida State's 311, Clemson's 146 rushing yards to Florida State's 22, a top 4 team in America averaged 1.1 yards a rush. Guys, the only way you lose that game is by coaching. That's it. Coaches putting players in bad spots. And that is exactly what happened. Whether it was the kicker, whether it was Phil Maffa, whether it was Cade Klubnik, right? Only way that happens is coaches put players in bad spots. Mike Norvell's aggressiveness won the day. Dabo Swinney's conservatism lost it. There you go. 844 fan phone. That's 844-326-3663. Let's get to the, oh boy, The once proud leprechaun of Lyman, 4th and 19 for the win. All you need is one stop.
If he doesn't start his show with "Hiddly hoo," I'm gonna be surprised.
I don't know what to expect here. Leprechaun of Lyman, the floor is yours, sir.
Well, speaking of teams that let your fan bases down, I've got no hilly-hoos to give today. Hilly, how in the world did Notre Dame lose that game, Mark? Don't get cocky, Ohio State. I think we'll meet again. And when we do, it will be you who is on the losing end. Missed opportunity after missed opportunity did me Irish in. Notre Dame beat Notre Dame, not Ohio State, my friends. There's still a chance, though small, for the Irish the playoffs to make. Beat Duke, beat Clemson, beat USC. Don't falter and don't break. Me final words are this, for me Irish green, gold, and blue. This season's not over. Don't you dare give up, and to Notre Dame be true. Go out there and play great until the deed is done. Go win one for the Gipper, and also the Leprechaun. Woo-hoo!
Hey, listen, we said on Friday, I don't think either one of these teams is a contender. That was what I said on Friday. Nothing I saw changed my mind. Notre Dame is on to something. They're also on something, but they're on to something. Their 1 through 22 talent just isn't there yet. And Ohio State can have their whole style dictated to them by somebody pushing them off the ball. Ohio State is a finesse team, right? And Notre Dame took the Michigan approach on them, and it just about worked. 4th and 19. You got to stop a 4th and 19 to win the game. Couldn't do it.
Welcome to Man of Tomorrow on the YouTube thread, who says Leprechaun of Lyman is not Irish. He didn't slur one word. He's questioning whether or not Leprechaun of Lyman has gotten into the cask strength stuff yet today.
Oh, I see.
Man, you guys should have been at Bourbon and Bacon Fest on Friday night, because that was an absolute treat to be at.
It was. Man.
Oh, it was so good. I know we'll get into it later on in the show, but you can't bring up alcohol and bourbon and booze without having us think back to that, because man, the food was just incredible. There was bourbons everywhere.
Really was. Let me get to my Clemson good, bad, and the ugly. Okay, here's the good. And I know it's hard to find the good when you're so heartbroken, but here it is. And also, guys, listening right now, we get a massive response here in the upstate. Invite you to check us out as well, not just on your radio dial, 97.7 FM and 97.1 FM, Greenville and Spartanburg, but also on the Odyssey app, AUDACY. All you got to do is download that app to your phone and just put in the Fan Upstate. You'll find us right there. Click it. You don't ever have to worry about a reception issue there. And then finally, we've got the new YouTube page open for you. And increasingly, a lot of you guys are finding us on the YouTube page, which is awesome. So just open your YouTube app, put in the Fan Upstate. You'll see us right there. Of a 4-hour show, Diesel and I put the first 2 hours and 15 minutes on there every single day. Right? Every single day.
Translation, please go subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we're trying to get it up to 450 subscribers by the end of the week.
That's right.
Close.
That's right.
We're close. All we need is 26 by the end of the week.
Brand
5 a day.
New channel. Help us grow it, my friends. Okay, the good. Cade Klubnik showed out, man. He was really good for the most part. And, you're bracing because there's inevitably going to be the mistake. And there was, The fumble was really, really bad. There was that catastrophic error, that awful mistake. But for the most part, I thought he played really good. I mean, honestly, in the entirety of the DJ Uiagalelei experience, did he have a game where you felt like he played as well as Cade Klubnik played in that game? At all. The defense yielded in the second half to Florida State 3 points. Against one of the top 5 offenses in America. Dabo Swinney said it best. How many defenses in the country are going to hold Florida State's offense to 17 points? Tyler Brown from Greenville, South Carolina, Greenville High School, is a freaking star. was the most dangerous player on the field, and he's a true freshman, and he got hurt, and he stayed in the game, and he kept playing. There's a lot of good there, man. A lot of good. Clemson was the better of two teams when one team is a top 5 team in the country for most of the game. Here's the bad. You now have two losses where you controlled the line of scrimmage in both. You largely controlled the game in both. Now, in the Duke game, there was a comedy of errors inside the 10-yard line. Missed field goal kicks, fumbles, plural, etc. Wheels fell off in the fourth quarter. In this particular game, first quarter, Clemson really controlled the line of scrimmage. Florida State could not run the football. Every time Florida State was running the football, it was a favor to Clemson. It's like, okay, please run the football, Florida State. You're not gaining squat. Every time you try, you're not gaining a damn thing. Clemson really controlled the line of scrimmage. So it's awful that you can't find a way to win those games. And then the ugly to me, you got Dabo taking kickers off the street. You're calling QB draws on 3rd and 8. You're punting the football on 4th and 1, 4th and 2 at midfield. And at some point, to win a game against a team like that, you gotta have your 4th and 2 plays ready to go. You gotta have your fake punts ready to go. You have to have your aggressive plays ready to go. Dabo said to me they weren't playing for the field goal. Well, it felt that way. You called a quarterback draw on 3rd and 8. That feels like you're settling for the field goal that you missed. At what point does it go through your mind, man, maybe a QB draw here on 3rd and 8 with a kicker who hasn't been on the team but for 4 days isn't the right move to make here. Maybe that's not the right call for us here. I don't know, man. I don't know. There were a lot of really head-scratching moments, and I felt like, how we say, they say about people, folks, as you age, you become more conservative. People that are left-leaning earlier in their lives, as they age, they become more right-leaning. I saw a younger progressive coach beating out an older conservative one. And Dabo's got to find the guts to go for some of those plays. It felt very tight to the vest to me, very close to the vest. All right, we've got Jim Szoke coming your way next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Guys, I've spoken to program directors who always say, find the positive. But it's hard for me to do that here on the Carolina Panthers. It feels just like Groundhog Day. I look forward to the day where we have Jim Szoke on after wins and after there's a lot of momentum here. But we're not there yet, and I don't necessarily see that anywhere in the near future. Jim Szoke is in the WBT Radio Hall of Fame. He does East Carolina University's football play-by-play and is the Carolina Panthers color commentator. And he joins us right now on the show. Jim, my question is, why do fans understand the journey of losing in other sports? In the NBA, San Antonio celebrates they get the number 1 overall pick. In MLB, Houston Astros fans understand losing 100 games 3 seasons in a row to restock the farm system. But in the NFL, when you lose, there is no understanding of the process of building. When you lose, fans are apoplectic. Why is that league the only one where you're not allowed to take your lumps?
I wouldn't even say it is just that one league. I think college football fans, you deal with them a lot. I don't think they're a very patient group of people. You mentioned ECU. I mean, they just got over being 0-3 with a win over Gardner-Webb to get to 1-3, and you thought the sky was absolutely falling in Greenville, North Carolina before that. And even, when you win, that only appeases for a period of time. So I think it's certainly football because of the amount of pressure on each game being the smallest amount of games with that there. But there is obviously in football, like the pro sport, at least you have the reward of the draft and the easier schedule and all the things that come with it. So I think NFL fans should be the absolute opposite, unless you've traded away your picks. And for the Panthers, they've traded away the top picks here for a while with having to get Bryce Young. So they have to ride that out, develop that, and make that happen.
Jim Zoki, part of the Panthers broadcast crew, joins the show. Jim, it's Diesel here. You know, in no world should Andy Dalton be asked to throw the ball 60 times in a game. But, you know, despite the weak offensive line, despite a weak running backs game, despite weak wide receivers who can't get separation, Andy Dalton flat out looked better than Bryce Young through his first 2 games of the season. Pre-game, I was of the belief, and after what I saw yesterday, I'm still of the belief that Andy Dalton is better equipped to run this offense right now as a veteran hand, though, you know, Frank Reich has said when Bryce Young is healthy and ready to come back, he will be the starter. And I believe that's a myopic way of looking at things. Your job is to win football games, not to protect the confidence of your rookie quarterback. You know, why am I wrong and why is Frank Reich right?
You know, they're heavily invested in Bryce Young, is for the reasons we talked about with that trade that they made, and trying to build a franchise around that quarterback. Coaching staff they brought in, that it was there to mentor a quarterback who's only had 2 games to play. But yeah, certainly Andy Dalton, no question. Anybody can look on the field and see that was the best offensive game. This was a team that was last in passing yards heading in with 299 total in 2 games, and he had 361 by one game yesterday by himself. So I think that, Andy, 13 years in the league, 3 times a Pro Bowl player in his past, is at a different stage of his career for sure, where he's able to come in and run the offense. And they did things they hadn't done the first couple of weeks, which was do things more further down the field and taking shots with DJ Chark and even Adam Thielen. A lot of those routes were deeper than what they were doing before. So yeah, there were on a day where it wasn't great. I mean, they scored 27 points, and that's certainly the most they've scored this season too. So there was more offense with Andy in there for sure yesterday.
Jim Zoki joining us. Jim, injuries befall any and every team, but are there just too many at too many key spots to expect results at this point?
We'll have to see about the length of some of these injuries too. Like you said, there's been a lot of injuries, and there were 4 yesterday, but we'll see how long is it with Frankie Luvu, how long with Xavier Woods, C.J. Henderson, and Jonathan Mingo added to what is season-ending, of course, for Shaq Thompson, and J.C. Horn on the IR for a period of time before that. So certainly the secondary, with 2 more added, to have the fact that you don't have J.C. Horn could be thin. But at this point on Monday, we'll know more on Wednesday. But as far as today, we don't know. We'll see how lengthy, if they will affect Sunday's game or not against Minnesota. But yeah, it's not ideal because this team is not super deep. They had some depth in the secondary, and they saw like Troy Hill and some other guys they can bring off the bench and get more out of because he's been around for a while. But yeah, at some point it does get a little bit thin. I thought yesterday, once again, Camus Grugier-Hill, leading tackler, had 10 tackles yesterday. Every time he gets on the field, does a good job. Deion Jones did a good job coming off the practice squad, getting that interception yesterday. So again, getting into the depth at linebacker, I thought there were some good things that happened yesterday.
Jim, the Carolina Panthers don't have a lot of money to spend right now. They have almost no cap space at the moment, $50 million opening up in cap space next year. Obviously, they need a lot of help at a lot of key positions, but if you were GM for a day, how would you spend that $50 million next offseason?
I think, another thing, we haven't talked about is the fact they've been playing without 2 offensive guards starting this season and that as well. So certainly it begins with protecting your young quarterback. I thought when he was out there, he was taking some hits even in the preseason. So you certainly want to make sure you got the offensive line fortified. The running game was decent the first week, but not very good the last 2 weeks. So I think, just making sure that offensive line is in place as far as, where on the roster you want to make sure you've got things put together to protect Bryce Young, but also his best friend is going to be a good running game, to have that competent there too. And I think it's a team too that's still, again, they took against some deep shots yesterday. There's not still like, and this is like an example of not like they're going to get this guy, but like a Tyreek Hill type. Some of that's scary that you look across the other line of scrimmage, you go, wow, this guy, if Steve Smith was here, that's a guy that's just like, you've got to account for him, and he's going to take up most of our attention. And I think with the Panthers, they've got a nice, allotment of pieces and complementary pieces, but they don't have like, that real burner, that real, Pro Bowl, puts fear into the hearts of defense kind of guys. And in some way, at least for some period of time, whether it's not through the draft, if it's a veteran guy that's around for just even a couple of years, somebody that really, strikes more fear in terms of just being that kind of a weapon that is something that keeps a defensive coordinator up at night trying to game plan again.
What are you hearing regarding Bryce's availability and the severity of this ankle injury? Might the team expect him to be back next week?
Well, Frank Reich had a press conference today. He said he'll have more information Wednesday. That's when teams in the NFL start talking about injuries. Even if they know the answer, they won't tell you on a Monday anyways. I think Wednesday will be the next time we know something about that. And, initially it came out, I think, reports 1 to 2 weeks. So obviously it leaves open the possibility he might play this week, but we'll certainly know more in 2 days.
He's Jim Zoke, Carolina Panthers color commentator on Twitter at the same name, Jim SZOKE. Jim J. Wilson sends his regards, and it's cool that we've got mutual friends there, my friend. Looking forward to meeting you in person, hopefully sometime soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mark.
All right, take care. Jim Zoke, Carolina Panthers color commentator. Diesel with the big Carolina Panthers opinion today. Start the Red Rocket, Diesel says. How about that? All right, up next, the good, the bad, and the ugly for the Gamecocks on Saturday. Right here on Offsides. It's the show that gives you both sides. We are the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Truly great to have you guys with us. I have been negligent in getting to your texts. How can we be the most interactive sports talk show anywhere if I don't get to you every different way we can? So let's do that right now. I'm going to fly through quite a lot of these, okay? Mark heard FSU's nickname is the Florida State Criminals. There is a nickname I have for them that is not safe for radio. I'll let you figure out what that is. Mark Payton says it's best just run the damn ball, leave the P's and O's out of it. Yeah, exactly. That the Clemson, the screen pass from Cade Klubnik, right, in overtime, third down and 1. Okay, 3rd down and 1 in overtime. The one thing you can't do there is put the ball behind the line of scrimmage. That's the one thing you can't do. And it's not a factor of, well, it didn't work out, so you're complaining about it. If it worked out, I'd be complaining about it. Like, everyone in the stadium gasped when Cade did that. And, Dabo addressed that. He said, look, that's on us. He said, we gave Cade the option. We thought he would choose the right option. But you know what they say about people who assume. You make an ass out of you and me. There should have been no option. Instead of an RPO, it should have been RRR. Run, run, run. Texter says, Dabo blowing smoke again. Texter says, Mark, I don't think that's a bad question that you asked Dabo, being a Clemson fan. I think Dabo has been gaslighting these post games, especially after Florida State. Diesel, how do you define gaslighting?
Gaslighting is when you intentionally try to mess with somebody's mind and make them feel like they're invalid, incorrect, crazy. It's like where you sort of play both sides of an argument in somebody's brain to just get them off their kilter.
You're playing games with them.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Texter says, Dabo doesn't have the skill position players to cover up his mistakes anymore. Cade Clubfoot is... Cade was really good. That's funny.
Ouch.
That's funny, but he was really good. He says Cade Clubfoot isn't all that either. Oh, man. Mongo says, ha, 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 ha. Hurricane Jeff says, I think that Miami can give Florida State a game just as good or better than Clemson did. I believe that Miami's offense is much better and their defense is compatible. The Noles show that they can't run the ball well, and that works in Miami's favor. It does. We will soon see. That'd be great to see, man. Actually, I'm gonna. If you're a Clemson fan feeling depressed, I've got a sign of hope for you that I'm going to share in the next segment. It's not best for Clemson that Miami beat Florida State. Okay, if you're a Clemson fan, you're really going to want to hear what I've got for you in the next segment. Okay. Texter says, let's see here. Not to upset Panthers fans at all, but did anyone notice C.J. Stroud's numbers on the season? Really weird win for Houston yesterday over Jacksonville. But CJ, while putting up numbers, right, I don't know. There have been some head-scratching moments as well for CJ. Yes, Diesel, their tears are sweet, so says Mongo. Mark, can you please go to a South Carolina game so you can experience it for yourself instead of taking the word from everybody so we can quit here in this Clemson pity party junk? Texter, I've been to a South Carolina game. I've been to Williams-Brice Stadium. It's happened. Texter says, turnover and a missed kick. I'm rarely that accurate on a pregame prediction, but destroying the confidence of his scholarship kicker was a bad move for the same chance of hitting a 30-yard field goal. Yeah, like think of Clemson's kicking game today, right? You now have a scholarship kicker with no confidence and a guy off the street that you probably shouldn't have taken off the street. You have two kickers, no confidence. That's a problem.
How long was this guy out of the program? He was on the team for several years.
Yeah.
And had left the team to go start his life, his career. And so how long was he away from kicking? I know you don't forget how to do it, but you know full well with athleticism, if you don't use it, you lose it, and you start to deteriorate really quickly.
This calendar year, he was off. So from January until now, he was off. Let's see here. Dude is 52 and been an FSU fan since 1980. That's 53 years ago. Oh, Texter, math is hard. That's 43 years ago. That's 43 years. Math is hard, Texter. Math is hard.
Yeah, take it from Mark.
Texter, you got me last week.
Yeah.
That's right. Texter says
somehow 7 points equals 8 points in Mark Ryan's mind.
You got me. FSU fan, Clemson lost that game. FSU didn't win it. That comes from an FSU fan. Some respect there. Some respect.
Take the win and enjoy it, Yeah. Sometimes you win games you're not supposed to.
Texter says Florida State hasn't beaten Clemson in 9 years because they bailed on the COVID year. Texter says Notre Dame is the Dallas Cowboys of college football. That is hilarious, man. Oh, you might just have given me an idea for the network show on Saturday, Texter. You might have given me an idea. What if I did that for a lot of different teams? What do you say? Florida State is not a top 5 team, maybe fringe top 10. I say they get upset by Duke. So says Spur Daddy. Good to hear from you, Spur Daddy. Mark, the good Spencer Rattler is the best in the SEC. The ugly is orange and purple. Go Gamecocks. Doesn't work that way, Texter. I've got the good, the bad, and the ugly for all of you. Okay. Let's see here. It's nice to see Clemson in the cellar of the ACC standings. Let's see when you see them. Yeah, you look at the ACC standings. Clemson's right at the bottom of them. 0-2. 0-2. Texter says, Mark could not get Odyssey to work in Lexington's sign-in issue. Kentucky is now 4-0. Now the beatdowns will begin. Clemson was a missed field goal from beating FSU. So says Trey in Kentucky. Trey, good to see. I just saw Lexington for the first time. Really cool spot, man. Really cool place. Keep trying on the sign-in issue. Texter says, Mark, if South Carolina lost to FSU in the same manner Clemson did, y'all would be saying how bad South Carolina sucked and deserved to lose the game. The scoreboard is what? God, this guy, Texter, can you please break this up in the future? The scoreboard is what matters. FSU won the game. Stats don't matter. Quit kissing Clemson's rear end because they lost to an equal opponent. Oh, boo-hoo. Clemson people are heartbroken. There's been no sympathy for South Carolina since you've been in the upstate. No moral victories, right? Oh, Clemson this. Oh, Clemson that. They lost. Their coaches killed them. Again, they Clemson the game. Again.
What are you writing a dissertation, Texter?
They're back to their old self. Please stop boo-hooing for Pickens County, Tech, Cam, and Boiling Springs. Cam, if you actually look at what you said, you and I are saying a lot of the same things. Okay? Florida State did win the game. That is what matters. Okay? 100%. Clemson's goals, Clemson's dreams are cooked. What do you want me to say? Okay, let's get to Mongo, who is up next here on the show. Hey, Mongo, appreciate the call, bud. You're offsides.
Mark Ryan, you are such a homer. You are such a homer, man.
I like this call.
I can't believe.
I like this call. I appreciate it. I appreciate the call. I can see that we're gonna use this in some sort of promo or something.
Can you be a homer for a school you didn't go to, Mongo?
He's a homer, man.
For who?
Dano's got to be signing his checks, Diesel. I mean, that's the only way he could be such a homer.
You need to stay off the message boards, Mongo. You spend way to put the cereal bowl down and get off the message boards, okay?
The evidence for the accusation, Mongo, is what?
Well, I mean, yeah, the guy in Bowling Springs that you just read the text about, he gets it. I mean, you're just blowing the Gamecocks out of the water. I mean, giving us no love, Mark. I mean, come on.
Well, Sir, you understand that Clemson, Florida State in the upstate was the biggest game of the weekend, right? And we have a 4-hour
No,
show.
Absolutely not.
Oh, come on.
Absolutely not. Listen. Here's the thing, and before I go off on this tangent, is look, Xavier Legette not the best receiver in the country? I mean, come on. That dude is a freak of nature. Am I right? Am I right?
He leads the nation in receiving yards. Yeah. I mean,
Thank
he
you.
looks.
That's
He
what I
looks.
like to hear.
He looks
I mean,
incredible.
I'm surprised you didn't say Bo Collins does, but I'm joking with you, Mark. I'm joking, okay? I'm not.
Mongo, I do appreciate that half of your points so far have been. I mean, come on, man! Like you could just see it. Come on, man!
Joking. Come on, man! Come on. No, the reason why I called was to celebrate the Gamecocks win, of course,
Okay.
because it was a good win. But I heard Tallahassee Todd, was that his name?
Yep.
I heard his call earlier, and he seemed to be stumbling and stammering around a little bit, trying to be the classy Florida State fan, right? And I can appreciate that. So I offer some advice from a Carolina fan that's dealt with Clemson as long as I've dealt with them. When you beat Clemson, the way you approach a Clemson fan on the day after or the Monday after is you walk up to them very solemnly with their sad, dejected self standing in front of you, and you extend a hand to them. And when they reach their hand out, you jerk it away and you say, psych, and then you laugh in their face. That's the way you approach a Clemson fan on Monday after your team beats them.
Hey, Mongo, thanks for the call, man. I do appreciate it. I'll have you know, too, Mongo, that I was the only person in the Davos Week press conference that asked a critical question, okay? The only person that asked a critical question, all right? So, our feeling is as a show, when both sides of the rivalry think you're in bed with the other side, you're onto something. We feel that way. We feel that way, yeah.
Looking at the YouTube chat comments, Madcraft asks the question, biggest story in sports, Deion Sanders or Taylor Swift? Says apparently she left her suite in a popcorn machine. That's how famous Taylor Swift is. She can't leave an NFL game, even just like out the back, back gate in a dark SUV. She had to leave her suite in a popcorn machine so that people wouldn't bum rush her. And then Man of Tomorrow asks, you said you had an alternate name for Seminoles, and he says, is it a-holes? I bet it's a-holes.
No, it is something that has to do with birth and baby batter. Okay, baby batter and birth. Okay, that's. But I can't say it on the radio.
I want to know, when are we going to get Mongo into the YouTube stream?
Yeah,
because Mongo would tear it up in there. You and Spur Daddy and JD Wyatt, Madcraft, all you guys in there would have a blast together. Mongo, we got to get you in the stream.
Okay, so I got a lot I got to cover before we get Chris Phillips on. So I got to get to texts, I got to get to good, bad, and ugly on the Gamecocks, and I got to get to the hopeful something or other for Clemson fans. So let's fly here. Here we go. Okay, Clemson was also missing some key players. Both teams were missing 2 starters. No excuses. Panthers are just like the Bears. Take a QB that has a lot of upside and should be good, then give them no real weapons. Amen. Texter says Clemson has found a way to beat Clemson in losses since the South Carolina game. The loss wasn't a result of a transfer portal issue. No one said it was here. Boy, Texter, can you please break these texts up and just send different text as opposed to making it a one run-on paragraph? Phil Maffa, unsure of his role, blocking the linebacker, caused us to lose the turnover margin and the game. Wiggins allowed 0 receptions on 5 targets. He goes out, and FSU called the right play to attack his backup. Special teams needs vast improvement as we're at the bottom of the nation with so much left to play for. Recruiting pride, 10-week season streak. How will Clemson respond? This season will be dubbed the year of adversity. Well, Clemson will either crumble or rise up from the face of the challenge of retaining some semblance of a great season. So says Jeff Wilson. Jeff, really, really good text. Just please break it up into individual texts every few lines for me, okay? So write a couple lines, then send. Write a few lines, then send. That'll be great. Let's see here. Dabo didn't call those plays, but he hired the guy. Dabo is smart enough to stick to recruiting and not try to call the plays, which makes the NIL and portal even more important. That's where FSU won. They bought a lot of talent and got better fast. Yep. For the folks saying, yeah, Clemson didn't lose this game because of the portal, I would have asked you, would Florida State have won the game without the portal? No, right? Florida State doesn't win that game without the portal. So, you kind of did lose the game because of the portal, right? So Florida State maximized the portal. You did not. Those players won the game. Who caught the touchdown pass in overtime? Coleman, right? Let's see here. Okay. The Yankees have become the Dallas Cowboys of the NFL. Let's see here. Mark, did you see them spray the players with fire extinguishers when they run out on that stupid magic trick? I did not see that. Clemson is like the Michael Scott of the ACC. Sometimes you love him and sometimes you hate him. And a lot of times you just scratch your head. That's a good one. Too soon for a South Carolina-Tennessee pick. I saw Tennessee is still mad about the Gamecocks messing up last season and will bring the orange noise. Vols by 14, so says Vol fan Randall. Never too soon. Let's see here. Texter says, you are a homer, Mark. Only my team's players are the best in the nation. That's a shot at you, Mongo. Mark, ask Mongo how South Carolina would fare against FSU. Texter says Clemson keeps finding ways to lose games this year. Dabo will straighten it out, or they will fill the bingo card in Columbia. Cocky for a reason. Texter says, bah, ha, ha, Mongo. Yes, he's right. No love for the Gamecocks. So says Cam in Boiling Springs. Texter says, I was being quite sarcastic with my accusations, Mark. So says Mongo. Let's see here. Mark, but guess what FSU loses? Okay, but guess what FSU is left with when you lose all those portal players next year? More portal players, okay? The worry for Clemson is that Florida State parlays that win into being back, because you could have put them right back down where they've been with a win, same old Florida State, and next year they don't have a sixth-year quarterback on a senior citizen discount, right? You could have put them right back where they were, and instead now you've given them the torch. That, if you're a Clemson fan, that's what hurts. That is really what hurts. Okay, my friends. I want to, when we come back, give you the good, the bad, and the ugly on the Gamecocks. Okay, the good, the bad, and the ugly on the Gamecocks. I've got something to make Clemson fans feel so much better, and I'm struggling to find where I'm going to put it on the rundown. But, an hour and 19 minutes in, it's time to get to some Gamecocks coverage, right? Got a 4-hour show, got to fit everybody in. Clemson, Florida State was the headliner, right? That's the way it goes. That's the way it is. We're in the upstate, 3/4 Clemson fans, nationally televised game. That's how it goes. But the Gamecocks also had one for the taking last night. We'll give you the good, the bad, and the ugly on the Gamecocks next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Fantastic to have you guys with us. So as we said late last week, both Clemson and South Carolina had their D-Day. Clemson flunked the test. South Carolina passed the test. I'm not going to say flying colors, but the test was passed nonetheless. Folks, if you don't know, you better ask somebody, but Spencer Rattler is the best quarterback in the SEC. Period. All of these guys, all this hype, shame on all of these so-called experts, all right, who, had their all-SEC quarterback projections when the year began, and KJ Jefferson, isn't he sexy? And Will Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, isn't he something else? Oh, boy, isn't he special? And not a single soul was talking about one Spencer Rattler. And it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing because he has been playing out of his ever-loving mind. Out of his ever-loving mind. What he's doing, folks, is special. And he is single-handedly keeping South Carolina afloat. Does South Carolina get credit? And like you got Gamecock fans upset that you spend the first hour of a 4-hour show, okay, talking about the biggest game in your area of the weekend. Sorry, Gamecock fans, but the 9th best team in the SEC against the 13th best team in the SEC isn't a bigger deal than maybe the first and second best teams out of the ACC.
Haven't we also learned that Clemson and South Carolina fans care just as much about the other side as they do their own side?
Yeah.
Don't you want to hear the schadenfreude? Don't you want to hear the talk about Clemson fans crying in the press box with the athletic director at hand? Don't you revel in that more than hearing us say, yeah, you beat a team that you're marginally better than? Good job.
Spencer Rattler. Yeah. Spencer Rattler was 18 for 20, 288 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. He had a QBR. Now, the QBR is different than a rating, right? QBR, the highest possible score is 100.0, okay? Spencer Rattler, out of a 100 possible score, put up a QBR of 96.7, okay? Will Rogers, on the other hand, for Mississippi State, threw for 487 yards, but at a QBR of 54.1. Average is 50, okay? See, he was a tick better than average. As South Carolina wins a game that they felt, like South Carolina felt in control of the Mississippi State game, much like the way Clemson felt in control of the Florida State game. The difference is South Carolina won. The difference is South Carolina may have found a running back. Mario Anderson, small school transfer, 88 yards rushing on the ground to a team that, couldn't run a lick up until this moment, right? So, that the developing of a running game is absolutely critical. So the good for South Carolina is that Rattler is the best quarterback in the SEC and is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I don't give a rip what anybody says. The good is that Mario Anderson is giving you something on the ground. Not a great yards per carry average, 3.4 yards per carry, but he's giving you something. Okay, that's the good. The bad is, to me, this whole thing feels like fool's gold. It's just like, man, if Rattler rolls an ankle, do the Gamecocks win another game? Like if Rattler was hurt in the first quarter of this one, is the final score 30-13 Mississippi State? It just, you don't have any defense to speak of. You're last in the SEC in defense. Clayton White should be on the hot seat in terms of defensive coordinator, right? And the success of Spencer Rattler is literally all you got. That's all you got, And then the ugly to me is the sense that this is a one-man team in every sense of the word. To which South Carolina fans would say, well, what about Xavier Legette? Yeah, what is he without Rattler? Your importance in the game of football is in direct proportion to the distance you line up from the football. In other words, if you're not close to the football when the ball is snapped, you're really not that important. All right? Xavier Legette is an athletic specimen. But if you have half of a defense, right? I'm a Florida grad. I'm a Florida fan. I suddenly feel a lot better about the Gators' chances in Columbia. Why? Because you got to stop a passing attack where you largely throw the ball to one guy. Xavier Legette, 5 receptions, 189 yards, had that crossing route that he broke for a touchdown. He's a hell of a player, but you have none of that without Rattler. So, to me, fool's gold is when you're finding a way to win, and credit to Beamer for finding a way to win when you don't have an offensive line, when you don't have a running game, and when you have nothing on defense. Nothing. on the defensive side of the ball. You literally have nothing. And I know Gamecock fans, you're going to be miffed about this because you're so used to losing, you can't handle a constructively critical assessment. But what you're dealing with is fool's gold, okay? You have no defense. You have no offensive line. You have no running game. You have a one-man team. And that one man is freaking outstanding, okay? But you allowed 519 yards in the game. You allowed 487 yards passing. But we shouldn't just focus on the good things, right? So credit to the Gamecocks for finding a way to win a game they absolutely had to win. It was season over if you entered Tennessee, Florida, Missouri, and Texas A&M with a record of 1-3. Now you got a fighting shot. And because I feel like you guys are going to find my assessment to be overly negative, let me leave you with one more thing. Next Saturday's game at Tennessee is imminently winnable for you. That is absolutely a winnable game. You know, the title of second best team in the SEC East is very, very much up for grabs. Remember in the offseason, I was complaining, well, why are they crowning Tennessee? You know, like, how do we know they're going to be great? Right? We know that Georgia's number 1. We know that Vanderbilt is number 7. Okay? You got 5 teams vying for number 2. Kentucky, Florida, South Carolina, Missouri, and Tennessee. Why not South Carolina? Why not now? That's the natural progression for Shane Beamer. Was in 4th place in the East in year 1. Was in 3rd place in the East in year 2. Could be in 2nd place in the East in year 3. But you got to find a defense. And you have to continue to develop that offensive line and that running game. Because otherwise, you can beat Vanderbilt and you can beat Mississippi State. But that's about it. All right, we talk Gamecocks with Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show. Your questions on the Gamecocks, you can get them to us right here on the madworldattractions.com text line. It's Offsides, the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, joined right now by Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show. Do truly appreciate you, man. Congrats on the dub, Chris. It was a must-win. We said on Friday that both Clemson and South Carolina had their D-Day. Clemson failed the test. South Carolina passed the test. That has to feel good in Columbia.
Mark and Diesel, first things first, guys. Appreciate you having me on. It's great to chat with you once again. And yes, certainly, Mark, those when your rival loses, you know, you're able to enjoy it to a much higher degree when your team then goes on and wins what felt like must-win game later that night. So certainly the vibes are high, Mark, Ryan, in Columbia. And, you know, now the real gauntlet, I would say, begins with the road trip to Tennessee, then, of course, your Florida Gators, and at Mizzou, at Texas A&M. So I think these next 4 games will really define what South Carolina is going to be when the dust settles on the 2023 season.
You know, to me, Chris, I said in the last segment, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I invite you to do the same on this show. But I said the good is Mario Anderson, you found some semblance of a running game. Spencer Rattler is the best quarterback in the SEC, period. And none of these idiots had him on their all-SEC teams before the year began. Will Rogers was ahead of him. KJ Jefferson was ahead of him. Shame on all these morons. That's the good, okay? The bad is the way you're winning is fool's gold. And you know that, Chris. You know that. You can't win not playing a lick of defense all year long, okay? And then the ugly, to me, it still seems like it's a one-man team in every sense of the word. Okay, so I've got a good, a bad, and the ugly. What's your good, bad, and the ugly?
Yeah, Mark, and I think yours are fair. I would say the good is the continued, you know, play of Spencer Rattler, just the way that he's playing, the level he's playing at this season. I think, you know, really, truly exceeding all the preseason expectations. I think even those who were optimistic about what his play was going to be this year, you know, had I told you that he had a couple of games in which he was completing 90% of his passes, I'm not even sure those people would have believed me. So I think that's the good. I would say the bad are the 4 sacks allowed. You know, I respect your viewpoint on the the fool's gold, how South Carolina is getting it done. But I'll say this, Mark, on a side note. I think this year was so much parity in college football, and I kind of feel like the whole style points conversation has gone out the window. Like, it's just survived and advanced at this point in college football. Maybe you disagree, but I think any win is a good win in the SEC. And so I'd say that when you needed it as badly as South Carolina, I'm hesitant to say it's a bad win. But
No, Chris, I gotta clarify. It's, fool's gold means that you're tricking yourself if you think that formula can lead you to a successful season. At some point, you got to get blocking. At some point, you got to have a 100-yard running back. At some point, you got to not be last in the league in defense. That's the fool's gold, my friend. You can win any game one time. But I'll have you know, Chris, Mississippi State was, in my power poll, 13th out of 14 teams in the SEC heading into that game. And because the team doesn't play any defense, you won by 7.
And that was they were actually 13th in mine as well, Mark Ryan. And just to play spoiler for you, they'll be 13th again tomorrow. And so that's the ugly for me, kind of to the point you're making, is that, the secondary and the defense as a whole. And Mark, I'm ready to come to grips with this, because I feel like the last 2 years, South Carolina has been right on the verge of, they've been an average defense, if not even slightly below average, but they've been assisted by being really opportunistic and, getting big time plays in their secondary. And it just seems like they don't have that this year. Now, give credit where credit's due, right? They played a really tough schedule, but either way, they're ranked dead last in most major court categories in the SEC. And Mark Ryan, I'm ready to admit that I just don't think this defense is very good, like top to bottom. I don't really think there's a strength of this defense. I think their defense will continue to make plays at certain points, right? Especially when South Carolina plays at home. It seems like things bounce the Gamecocks' way. But I just don't think the defense is very good, Mark Ryan. I think South Carolina is going to have to outscore most of their opponents to win. So there was definitely a mix of good, bad, and ugly on Saturday night. But again, the bottom line is this. Thankfully, it resulted in a Gamecocks win.
Chris, I asked you this question a couple of weeks ago. I want to see if your opinion has changed. The Cockaboose bringing the team out onto the field. How are you feeling about it now?
Well, it's funny, Diesel. Apparently, I was told, because I wasn't there in person, I was told it was actually improved from the first game. Apparently, in game 1, I think Cocky was driving the Cockaboose on the field, and there was no grand reveal like he used to have. Apparently, that was not the case on Saturday night. So I'd probably need somebody to confirm that for me, but that's what I was told. It was actually better than the first game. So, I'll say this, Diesel. From everything we've heard, you look on social media, all the Mississippi State folks and others, I mean, it really sounds like it's a top-notch game day atmosphere. What they've done at South Carolina, Justin King and his team, from the light show to the media displayed in-game to the pregame festivities, I mean, really everything, the sound system, it's all top-notch. So it's a new wrinkle for sure, but, I think if the Gamecocks are winning and winning at home, I think it's one that fans will be able to get used to rather quickly.
Chris, Spencer Rattler is playing at a level never before seen from a Gamecock quarterback, and therefore Spencer Rattler is the best Gamecock quarterback of all time. True statement?
If he can finish it off, Mark. I mean, if he keeps this up for the rest of the season, yeah, he's compiling the best season that we've ever seen in school history. I mean, there's been no quarterback, and that's not to say that obviously Connor Shaw is always going to be revered as the GOAT by Gamecock fans because of so many records that he holds and being the guy behind the controls of 3 straight 11-win seasons. But from a pure, putting up numbers and what he's doing at the quarterback position, when you think about, too, how much more help a guy like Connor Shaw had versus what Spencer Rattler has right now. I mean, it's like you said, Mark, it really is a one-man team. And I keep waiting to, not in a negative way, I want to see him fall, but I keep waiting, Mark, for the moment where it's like, okay, Spencer Rattler is human, right? It's like, how long can he realistically put this team on his back and carry them and will them to victory? Because, Mark, the best way to encapsulate what happened Saturday night is this. Clayton White and the Gamecocks defense did everything they could to lose that football game, and Spencer Rattler would not allow it. That's the best way to encapsulate that. So, I said today, Mark, I think he should be up for the Heisman. And I'm not saying he should win it right now, but I don't know how you can have a conversation who the best player in college football is and not at least have Spencer Rattler on your short list. Heck, I could throw Xavier Legette in there as well because I think right now he's the best wide receiver in college football. Statistically, that's what it says. So I think a lot of folks need to put respect on Spencer Rattler's name. And certainly, Mark, if he keeps this level of play up, I think we'll look back and say it was the greatest season ever in school history.
Chris, are you at all concerned? The opponents have been really odd for the Gamecocks thus far, right? Like, you've had North Carolina, who's a top 15 team. You've had Georgia, who's the number 1 team. You've had an FCS school, and you've had a bottom feeder Power 5 team in Mississippi State. Are you at all concerned that, as you now play 4 straight games against teams with pulses, that, you're going to have to be more dynamic than the Rattler to Leggett combination to win those games?
Yeah, certainly, Mark. I mean, I think you're going to need to see more of what you saw from Mario Anderson in that running game on Saturday night. Like you mentioned, Mark, that was the good. One of the best things that happened is that, I think South Carolina finally found some answers at the running back position. You look at Mario Anderson, there were questions about him coming from the Division II level to SEC, but what you see from him and that, what he makes up for and what he may lack in quote unquote SEC talent or what have you, you'll be able to tell on Saturday night. But he's a guy that plays with supreme confidence, right? He runs with a supreme edge because he's done it at a high level before. Like, he's carried the load. He's been an RB1. I don't care what level it's at. I think that makes a world of difference. So you just saw a major difference in him getting the running game going. And Mark, it's like you and I have talked, like, they don't have to be elite running the football. They just got to be good enough to pose a threat to where Spencer Rattler is able to operate and work. Because if they do that and have any semblance of balance at all, it's going to lead to really good things for the offense. But to your point, Mark, I mean, certainly 3 of your next 4 on the road. There's nowhere to hide on the road in the SEC. And, for all the same reasons, Mark, I just talked about going in this Mississippi State game, how the game was at home at Williams-Brice, under the lights, the advantage that gives you. In these games, these 50-50 toss-up matchups, with really teams 3 through 13, I think, in the SEC, that's going to be one of the big things and big factors, right? For example, Mark, your Florida Gators taking on Kentucky at noon at Kroger Field, a lot better of an advantage than having to face that night game crowd. South Carolina obviously won't have that luxury in Neyland. And so you kind of keep your fingers crossed that these road games they're in the day and your home games are all at night, because it just seems like the Gamecocks are a different team under the lights. But no, certainly. I mean, it's you just wonder, Mark, how long can Spencer Rattler realistically just keep carrying the load and Xavier Leggett be the lone guy on the outside and them be able to flourish, because you have to think they're going to have an off game at some point. Hopefully not, but somebody else will have to step up when that time comes.
Chris, we've talked many times about Spencer Rattler's decision-making, and that is vastly improved through 4 games already this season, 7 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. So he's on pace to have a 21-6 type of season. Do you believe that he hits the over or the under on those numbers in that ratio?
I think he's going to go over touchdowns, under picks, guys, based off what I've seen, because you have to think, too, the 2 interceptions at Georgia were 2 just, throw it up and hope something good happens. End of the game, you're down 10 points. Like, what do you have to lose type deal. So, and I think if South Carolina is going to have the 7 or 8 win season that we all hope they do, I think he's going to have to hit the over on that mark. And you'd like to think this offense is only going to get better as the season progresses. The offensive line is obviously taking steps forward with young guys like Big Tree Babalade and Trovon Bowe getting more reps. You're just seeing them come together more. So, I know they gave up 4 sacks, but I think when you're throwing the football as much as South Carolina is, you're probably going to give up 2 or 3 a game at minimum, and that's kind of just something you have to accept, especially playing 2 fresh on the line. But that's the thing, Diesel. You made a great point to start there. Is that's the thing that's impressed me more than anything is we talked all offseason. Like we all knew Spencer Rattler was capable of this type of play. But eliminating the mistakes and really raising the floor. We talked about that all summer. Could he raise the floor and eliminate those boneheaded mistakes and boneheaded decisions? And I mean, so far, guys, he's been darn near perfect. So you can't ask for much more than you're getting from QB1. And like Mark has mentioned many times, man, now it's about somebody else stepping up, helping him out. Because I guess the one thing that does scare you, you're 2-2 right now. And you look back at that Mississippi State game, Spencer Rattler played nearly a perfect game, and South Carolina only won by a touchdown. So what happens if he even has somewhat – what happens if he has an average game, right?
If he's human. Well, what happens there if he's human? If he's like 20 for 34 with 2 touchdowns and 1 pick, what's the score? What's the score line then of the game? Chris, when we do as we do a Monday through Friday show, usually our mindset in our planning is Monday and Tuesday is mostly review, and Wednesday is when you turn the page. But as we have you on Mondays, I'd like to do a little bit of the turning the page here. I believe Tennessee, what I've seen from both teams, this is now a winnable game for South Carolina. The only thing we know in the East, Chris, is that Georgia's the best team and Vanderbilt is the worst team. And, we've mentioned in Beamer in year 1 was in 4th place. Beamer in year 2 was in 3rd place in the East. Natural progression is to finish in 2nd place. Kentucky, Florida, South Carolina, Missouri, Tennessee. Who knows who actually is the second best team in the league? We're going to find out. I think this is a winnable game for the Gamecocks. What say you?
Mark, I would agree. I think it's a huge game for both programs, right? When you think back to last year and the 63-38 butt whooping, and I most notably went on record and said South Carolina had no chance in that game. I think most of us agree with that sentiment. And the Gamecocks, what they did will forever live on as one of the most unthinkable, surprising results you've ever seen in college football. But, Tennessee hasn't forgotten. It'll be one of the best atmospheres of the college football season, I think, on Saturday night when Neyland comes alive and the lights come on and, Tennessee takes the field against South Carolina. But certainly, Mark, they haven't looked great. Tennessee's just kind of sputtered around all season long. And, of course, they got smacked down by the Gators. But, I look at it again, Mark, like I said earlier, all the reasons I told you about, hey, South Carolina's got stayed at home. They're under the lights. Good things happen on the home field. It's going to be a really raucous environment. Well, now South Carolina has all of that going against them, and maybe even then some, because it's a 100,000 person venue. Again, it's going to be it's going to be a madhouse, right? I think holding opponents to field goals, Mark, in the red zone in that game, who is able to convert on more of their opportunities is going to be huge, because I think the over-under mark is 61.5. I don't see a lick of defense being played in this game. I think this is going to be a track meet, back and forth, high-scoring ball game. I've seen nothing from either side that tells me that either can stop anybody, especially in the passing game. So is South Carolina able to have a semblance of balance? Tennessee loves to get after the quarterback. They got to keep Spencer Rattler upright. If they can do that, the passing game should flourish. But on the flip side, Josh Heupel's licking his chops, right, looking at the film from the Mississippi State game and what they might be able to do in the passing game as well. And obviously the play of Joe Milton is going to be big in this one, in that quarterback duel. And can Milton throw the change up, and can he be more accurate than we've seen to this point? And can South Carolina slow down that Tennessee running game as well? But no, it's definitely a winnable game, Mark. I would look at this as a 50-50 contest. Again, the biggest thing going against South Carolina, funny enough, it might just be the intangibles, being on the road at night and the whole revenge factor. And does that really mean anything when toe meets leather? Not necessarily, but it's a great talking point, a great storyline going into this one. And I know this is one Tennessee's had circled on their calendar all offseason.
Well, Chris, I do just want to remind you that if I don't know if you're going to that game or not, but if you do go, remember to bring your hard hat and your shout stain stick, because they have a tendency to throw mustard up there.
And golf balls too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will not be going, because we'll be back in studio and be hosting the post-game call-in show right after that game concludes. But I tell you, Diesel and Mark, that if you're a Gamecock fan going to Neyland, I applaud you, because you're a very brave individual. I will give you that.
His name is Chris Phillips. He hosts the Daily Crow, part of the Spurs Up Show. That's where you can get to him on Twitter at the Spurs Up Show. And we love his unbiased, one of the only guys that can give you an unbiased, unfiltered opinion. I'll have you know, Chris, I was the only media member at the Clemson game that asked Dabo a tough question after the game on Saturday. I asked him essentially 3rd and 8 at the 10-yard line. You call a QB draw. Why are you playing for the field goal there? Dabo didn't like it, but a lot of the fans respected that I asked the tough one, and we always will, just like you do as well, Chris. We will see you on Thursday, my friend, all right?
Mark, I'd expect nothing less from you, my friend. Congratulations to you and Diesel. Keep up the great work. We'll talk later this week, my man.
All right, sounds good. Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show, at the Spurs Up Show on Twitter. The top 5 at 5 is coming your way next. Oh, Diesel, this is funny. I saw this on who said this? On our YouTube page. Let's see here. Mongo said that Clayton White is the Gamecocks defensive coordinator, right? And he said he's on a blocking spree on Twitter, right? So Look at this. He blocked Brad Crawford because Brad Crawford again, Diesel, what has been a theme on this show the last couple of weeks? What we've said things like you get in trouble for posting facts these days, right? Brad Crawford had the unfortunate distinction of just posting the stats for South Carolina's defense this year. And that got him blocked by Clayton White. Blocked by Clayton White on the team. Man, that is funny. He says expect an inspired performance from the South Carolina defense this weekend. You know, guys, if you guys can't handle facts, right? Here are the facts. Here is what you've done. You're too soft to be in coaching, man. You're just too soft. You know, my question to Dabo was a matter of opinion, right? Brad Crawford is posting your actual stats and the fact that has you last in the SEC.
This is $1 million man, by the way. He's making $1.1 million a year to be South Carolina's defensive coordinator. And here's the thing, you know, like if this was 10 years ago, as Twitter was really just kind of getting off the ground, you know, it was just as negative and vitriolic then. People had essentially the same takes then. But the difference was that the people they were talking about didn't grow up in a Twitter world. They didn't grow up caring about Twitter. But now everybody who's in these positions have grown up under the yoke of social media. And so they really, really care. And it really, really hurts their feelings. You know, like I am what's I like to call myself a zillennial. It's a millennial that starts with an X. And it's because I have some tendencies that are more Gen X than millennial. And it's because I, being 39, I had to think about it there for a second. I, being 39, did not grow up with social media until I was in college. I didn't have social media until Facebook wasn't a thing until I was in college. So anybody older than 38, 39, 40 years old grew up before social media was the end all be all. It really mattered what people thought about you. You know, you lived life face to face.
Yeah, I remember, Diesel. I had graduated from Florida, but I was still dating somebody that was at Florida, and Facebook was becoming a thing.
Yeah.
But you remember it was only available to people on college campuses?
Yeah, you had to have a .edu email address to be eligible.
That's how it started. And like that girl was like, "Oh, Mark, you don't have no idea how addicting this stuff is. Like it connects you with everybody.
Yeah.
You see what everybody's doing at all times." And I'm like, "It doesn't sound very fun." You know? Years later, it wasn't.
I mean, we've seen the movie, the was it called? The Social Network, I think was the name of the movie.
Yeah.
Where essentially he says, I created this network to find out who somebody is sleeping with. You know, like it was the dating status.
Yeah.
It was the dating status was the key feature for Mark Zuckerberg in creating / stealing Facebook from, I forget what their names were. The Winklevoss twins, I think is what their names were. But that dating status is what really set it apart in his mind.
There you go. All right, my friends, it is time for us to do that jam. Texter wants to know, Mark, what question did you ask Dabo? We'll have it for you right here. It's the top 5 at 5, the top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstate, Offsiders, the top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
5.
At number 5 today, of course, let us open with Clemson. You know, guys, in my professional opinion, the game was lost by Clemson due to coaching. Okay, you can't tell me you got 130 more yards than Florida State. Okay, you out first down them 25-16. You out rushed them 140-21. 3 different times during the game, I felt like Clemson was in total control. All right, number 1, when it was 17-7 with 2 minutes to go in the first half. Number 2, when it was 24-17 Clemson, they've got the ball on the Florida State 29-yard line, and there's less than 1 minute to go in the third quarter. That was the play before the fumble. And then number 3, under 2 minutes to go in the game, you got the ball at the Florida State 9-yard line. All three of those scenarios, I felt Clemson's in total control of this game. But I felt like the coaching staff continued to put them in position to lose. Look, guys, everyone wants to say, don't point the finger, don't point the finger. But when you lose, there is a reason why you lost. It wasn't that Florida State had a better team than you. You won the line of scrimmage the entire game, okay? And, you give a young quarterback a run-pass option on 3rd and 1 in overtime. Idiotic play call. Then on 3rd and 8 in regulation, you got to score a touchdown because you got to figure Florida State's going to put points on the board in their last possession, right? You got 3rd and 8 on the 9-yard line. You call a QB draw. I asked Dabo Swinney about that very play after the game.
Offensive possession, there was a 3rd and 8 or 9, and the call was a QB draw. It seemed like there was a chance at the time to potentially run the clock out and have that be the final possession of the game. Can you speak to the decision to kind of play for the field goal there that ultimately was missed, as opposed to maybe being more aggressive and putting the ball in the air there?
Yeah, it really wasn't playing for the field goal. Garrett really thought that play was going to pop. They're bringing Saul blitz, and we really thought it was a great call, and thought it was going to pop. We really thought that we had a great call right there, and they made a good play. I got off a block, but I don't have a problem with the call. Again, we thought it was going to hit. Especially with what the call was for them defensively, but it didn't work out, and so you get to ask the question. But I have no problem with how Garrett called the game. Thought he did a heck of a job. Gave us a chance to win.
You see, to me, I thought the question from me was fair. I thought the response from Dabo was fair. Okay, I'm just never going to subscribe to, in a key situation, you call a quarterback draw on 3rd and 8. I'm too aggressive for that. I thought Mike Norvell's youth and aggressiveness won the game. I thought Dabo's elder statesmanship and conservativeness lost the game for Clemson. Next up.
4.
All right. Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes took an ass whooping on Saturday. 42-6. At the hands of the Oregon Ducks. Now, that was preceded by this Dan Lanning pregame speech. Check this out.
Rooted in substance, not flash, rooted in substance. Today, we talk with our pads. You talk with your helmet, right? Every moment. The Cinderella story is over, man, right? They're fighting for clicks, we're fighting for wins. There's a difference, right? There's a difference. Right? This game ain't going to be played in Hollywood. It's going to be played on the grass. Right? It's going to be played on the grass.
It's quite ironic to hear that from Dan Lanning, considering that his school has 6,346 uniform combinations and zero national championships. They've built their name and image on clicks and being loud and being out there. Can you guys miss me with all of the Dion hate here that I'm seeing the last 24, 48 hours? I mean, this is a dude with an over-under win total of 3.5, won his first 3 games, with a team that turned over 76 players, all right? A roster that has 24 and 5-star players and a bunch of yous and me's. They've tripled last season's win total in the first month of the year. They weren't going to beat Oregon. You got to be kidding me. Oregon, who has been building their talent base since Chip Kelly for 5 or 6 years, that was unrealistic.
Yeah, but Mark, you know full well in this country we love to build people up, but what do we love to do more than build people up? Tear them down. Yeah, we love to tear people down. We have a society of people just itching to say "I told you so," itching for it at any chance they possibly get.
And it sucks. But what did you think? Colorado's going to go undefeated? They were supposed to be awful. You don't like that they have hype, so you want to tear the man down. But he continues to do an unbelievable job at Colorado. And Coach Prime here says it's never going to get worse than this.
It translates in practice. I don't say stuff just to say it for a click, contrary to what somebody say. But I keep receipts. But I'm serious. I analyze and I understand what we're up against and what we have and what we need. One thing that I could say honestly and candidly, you better get me right now. This is the worst we're going to be. You better get me right now. Now somebody, yeah, I got messengers. God bless him though, man. He's a great coach. He did a great job. God bless him. He take their shots. They won. I don't shoot. I don't do that. They won.
I love that, Diesel. I love him. I absolutely
He
love
is the
him.
king of turning something around to make you look bad, even when somebody comes after him and they've got him on a legitimate point. He is the king of turning it around. Deion talks a lot of trash, and then when he gets called on it, well, I just want to talk about my team. That's all I want to do. I want to talk about my team. And then Dan Lanning takes his shots, and he's great at turning it around.
Diesel, you can't find me one shot this year that Coach Prime has taken on one of their opponents. You can't find me one shot. He hasn't done it. He's brash about himself, but he's not trashing the teams that they're going up against. If you want to find me a clip, I'll gladly listen to it. Next up.
3.
Hey, listen, congratulations in order to the South Carolina Gamecocks, man. Clemson had its D-Day, and it failed. South Carolina had its D-Day, and you're staying alive. You did it. And now you face the meat of your schedule with a pulse, and that is an unbelievable thing. So the good, the bad, the ugly for South Carolina to me is as follows. Mario Anderson, man, he gave you some semblance of a running game. The offensive line had its best game of the season. Spencer Rattler is the best freaking quarterback in the SEC, if not the nation. And I ask of you, Gamecock fans, all right, do we agree that Spencer Rattler is now the best quarterback in South Carolina history? Because he's playing at a level no other QB in Gamecocks history ever has. If so, if you agree, then we're in agreement. If not, what does he need to accomplish to earn that distinction? You please tell me. Let me know. Because that guy is unfreaking stoppable right now. I just happen to believe against the defenses like Missouri, Tennessee, Florida, you're going to need more than the one-man band of Rattler to Leggett to win that game. Who else is going to step up? And finally,
2.
Oh, I'm sorry. Number 2. Number 2 today, man. How about a crazy day in the NFL yesterday? The Miami Dolphins set multiple records in their win over Denver. Now, guys, it was totally unfair. And by that, here's what I mean. The Dolphins of the NFL should never be matched with the University of Denver. Okay? That was a totally unfair game, unfair performance.
But it's Denver with Sean Payton and with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, University of Denver. 10 touchdowns, 10 offensive touchdowns.
Yeah.
Never happened before in NFL history. 726 yards of offense. Never happened before in NFL history.
Somewhere at DC is looking for a job right now.
Guys, is it more about Miami? Is it more about Denver? Miami's unbelievable. They got 4 guys on the team that are sub 4.3 in speed. And then you got, quite possibly, the most creative offensive mind in the NFL. Finally, the Dolphins have given the city of Miami a team that matches the glitz and the glamour. Miami has never been the it ticket in that city.
Yeah.
It's been the Heat with LeBron and the Heat with Dwayne Wade, right? And
probably not since the Dan Marino days.
Right, and the Marlins won a couple World Series in MLB. The Dolphins have always been, the team that you didn't want to admit you were a fan of. And now they've got the Hollywood-style entertainment, the speed, the scoring, the creativity. What we're seeing, man, is that offensive coaches are ruling the day and that the young guns are taking the old guys behind the woodshed. We saw it last week, Mike McDaniel against Bill Belichick. We saw it this week, Mike McDaniel, Sean Payton. We saw it this week in college football, Mike Norvell against Dabo Swinney. That's what's happening, and it's not a good look. Mike McDaniel, on the 70-point performance here, says, as a great coach always does, deflects all praise.
Well, it's a lot of players executing a lot of things to a standard that's unrelenting, and they definitely earned that victory.
Guy takes no credit to himself. You see some of those plays, man? Like they had an end around reverse shovel pass. I've never seen that before. It's incredible. And finally,
1.
so we were lied to. We all were lied to. A couple weeks ago, we heard that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce were, quote, casually hanging out. Okay? That's what we heard. Because words start to leak that they were seen together, spotted together. Oh, no. They're just casually hanging out.
He went to her show. He gave her a friendship bracelet with his number on it.
Yeah. Oh, is that true?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
That's the thing at Taylor Swift shows is you give away friendship bracelets.
And she called him. And she
so.
used the digits. How about that? So anyway, somebody lied to us because how do you go from that 2 weeks ago to you're sitting next to his mom watching him play an NFL game and all game long? You know, people were saying on Twitter yesterday, Diesel, we just need like a small box in the corner of this screen of just Taylor Swift. Like just keep the camera on her and give us like the picture-in-picture of Taylor Swift the entire game. Taylor Swift is there, large and in charge. This is wildly entertaining. That was the most entertaining part of the game because the Bears certainly didn't show up at all. Did you guys hear that she had to leave in a popcorn machine to prevent people from swarming her out after the game? I hate that for her. She actually seems, Diesel, whether you like her music or not, I think she's got a couple of pretty cool jams, whether you like her music or not, okay? Whether you're a Swiftie or not. Yeah, I just used that word.
Are you a Swiftie?
No. I got 1 or 2 songs is pretty halfway decent. But she seems like a cool chick, doesn't she? Like she seems like a cool girl. She doesn't seem like the fame has gotten to her head. She seems normal as somebody in her place could be.
I think she's normal. I think her fans are complete nut bars.
Nut jobs. And I feel for her, man. I really, really do. So anyway, Aaron Andrews here, who, by the way, was my colleague at WUFT Channel 5 in Gainesville, Florida, back in the day. Aaron Andrews describes Taylor Swift's reaction to Travis Kelce's touchdown.
I don't know who jumped higher after a Travis Kelce touchdown. If it was Taylor or Greg Olsen when he heard she was going to be at the stadium today.
Quite the day, right?
I think my favorite part of that shot, Taylor Swift is chest bumping for Travis Kelce's touchdown, and Mama Kelce's just standing next to her. She's like, honey, I've seen 71 of these. She gave like a light tap on the glass, and she wasn't overly excited about it.
I thought it was great. I thought she added to the excitement of the game, and Taylor Swift gets a thumbs up from me. It's like she seems like a good person. She seems like a humble person. She is it. Like, who is the Taylor Swift right now of acting? Because she's the number one, right? Who's
it's Taylor
2?
Swift and Beyonce.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift and Beyonce. They're 1A, 1B. Lady Gaga, you could add her to the list.
That's it.
Yeah.
She's like just at a whole other level. And Travis Kelce landed her.
Maybe.
Good on you, Travis.
Either that or she realized the marketing opportunity while she had it and was like, we're not really dating, but I'm going to go to the game and make it. I'm just going to play into it, have fun with it.
Come on.
I don't know. This was really interesting, Mark. I didn't think you were going to get to this, but this is Aaron Andrews asking Patrick Mahomes what it's like to deal with Swiftie pressure.
Do you realize how much pressure there was on you today from the Swifties to get Travis Kelce a touchdown with Taylor in the house today?
Yeah, I heard she was in the house.
Did you feel the pressure, Patrick?
I felt a little bit of pressure, and so I knew I had to get it to Trav. And, of course, it's on a route that Travis, he does his own thing and just makes up a route, and I throw it to him. So I think he wanted to get in the end zone just as much as all the Swifties wanted him to.
Travis Kelce is a bit of a goofball. He's a bit of a class clown, but he's like a good Americana from a good family class clown.
Yeah, he's not goofball like Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah.
He's not that goofy.
He's not a drunk goofball. He's a good dude. All right, folks, that's the top 5 at 5. We've got Cole Bryson recapping the high school weekend that was coming your way next right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
Stream, great as always. Thank you so much for being here throughout the entire show today. Thank you for continuing to grow this thing. Mongo was in here, I think maybe for the first time ever, or for the first time in a long time. I know that we are, efforting to grow this thing. We've just crossed the 425 mark. Awesome. Next goal is 450. So do me a favor, send a link to the Fan Upstate Facebook page, or YouTube page, to anybody you know who likes sports. Send it to everybody. Send it to people who don't even like sports, people who are just into entertaining and compelling conversation. Send it to them. Tell them that they should subscribe. Tell them that they should get into the web stream and chat at some point this week. That would be great. You guys are instrumental in helping us grow, and you're doing a fantastic job. So thank you so much.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for all you do, man. For all you do. We love you guys to Reese's Pieces, and we appreciate you. Thank you. The interaction, it's kind of, Diesel and I talk about this. You kind of have given us like that little blue pill to see all the interaction going on, from the calls to the tweets to the text to the YouTube feed. It's awesome to see. And, we're just two guys without you. Okay. We appreciate you so much. We'll see you tomorrow.